three things people have a really hard time saying. I made a mistake, I need help, and the state of Massachusetts.
Welcome to the Let's Talk Business podcast, a project of the PTEX Group. Gain valuable, actionable ideas from the world's top business leaders to help you take the next step in your business journey. And now, here is your host, Meny Hoffman.
Coming to you from the PTEX headquarters in Brooklyn, New York. This is the podcast for no-nonsense advice to help you learn, grow, and lead. Today, I'm so excited to welcome our guest, Shulem Berkowitz. In this episode, we discuss Shulem's evolution from a skilled craftsman to a thought-out leadership coach, highlighting his journey of personal and professional transformation. Initially overwhelmed by the realm of business, Shulem turned to coaching, which revealed his true calling. By shifting his focus from managing every detail to empowering individuals and organizations, Shulem now provides invaluable insights into unlocking potential and overcoming internal barriers. Through a deep dive into distinction between consultant, coaches, and therapists, Shulem emphasizes the importance of leveraging the right experience at the right time to foster accountability and focus. Whether you're an emerging entrepreneur or a seasoned leader, Shulem's insights offer a roadmap for navigating today's dynamic business landscape and achieving personal growth. Without further ado, here is my interview with Shulem Berkowitz. Shulem, thank you so much for joining me on the Let's Talk Business podcast.
My honor and a pleasure. Acknowledge yourself.
Yes, so our relationship goes back for quite some time now. I think we've met many, many years ago already. And I've seen you doing amazing things with people that have been trusting you to be their coach and working with them on the leadership team. For our listeners that don't know about you or don't know your story, give us the aha moment, the pivotal moment in your career where you started getting involved with leadership and understanding to what it takes to build a sustainable business.
I started out on my own as a craftsman. I knew too much, I would say. I was able to write. I was able to do graphics. I started out my work life in writing for newspapers. Then I did 15 years in graphics design and printing. Then I left and I started out online marketing, where I started my own business. In the 15 years, I worked for my father in Hamatic, so I was an employee. And there, I actually got into the idea. It was my father who always said, if you understand Mashu, you would understand business, you would understand IT, you would understand new programs. I did the IT, I did the programs, I did everything that was to be done, I did. I remember we got a job once, a Yiddish job from Israel, and there was a program called PageMaker, and it had Yiddish. Quark Express didn't support Yiddish. We did everything in flip fonts. And the only way to be able to do that job was through InDesign, Adobe InDesign. It was a new program. Nobody knew about it. The good, powerful computers, Apple back then, was most powerful computers crashed every 10 minutes. I had to learn the program, study the program, and back in the day when we bought that program, a thick book came along to get to know how the program works. I had to do that in a night and then work 2 nights afterwards to be able to get the job done. I was the craftsman and everything. At that point, one time I realized, hey, if I know my shoe, why shouldn't I understand business? Why do we need a necktie to understand business? So I paid a lot of money. Some didn't understand the business. They had just a curriculum. Some actually did. And after I understood what business is, I decided to venture out on my own and do business. And then I opened online marketing, but I was my own bottleneck. I did the design, I did the planning, I did the understanding, I did the copy, and I did the programming of websites. And then I actually did the social marketing plans and the Google marketing plans, keyword marketing plans, SEO, and blogs, and the writing of all of that. I did everything. And it took me 4 to 5 years to actually set up good enough help that me as a madman with the genius with 1,000 hands should be able to manage my business. And then my coach, Brisk, approached me saying, I think you're going to be better at doing coaching rather than actually running your own business. I pushed it away because finally I hit success. But after 10 months, he approached me again. I'm overwhelmed. I need help. I believe you're going to be much better in doing it's much more natural to you to teach, to coach, to be able to understand people. Maybe could you join me? And 2 days prior, I had a meeting with my financial guy, and I realized that even though I start out every project planning out to make $200 an hour, I ended up after the project with $20 an hour, and sometimes certain projects $20 minus.
Yeah, we've all been there.
So, and he said, well, if you price your time and you leave and you get paid, this is what you're going to stick with. There's no additional investment to be able to justify what you get paid for. So I said, let's try it. And as they say, this is history. I started out slowly, a few hours a day. And then after 3-4 months, I got all my clientele and I transferred it to my competition at that time. And I got fully into coaching. Slowly, I coached mostly in processes and just improving performance, which I did in my company. I understood business because I learned business. I understood marketing. Slowly, I got to self-transform. I worked on myself a lot through my coach, and that shifted me into understanding leadership, understanding the concept of leading yourself first and then leading others. And that got me slowly into much more profoundly into building people and building strength and understanding where people want to go, how they get there, why they don't get where they want to go, which is the ideal question for a coach. I know the question would always go, I know what to do, I know how to do it, I know why I want to do it, but I'm just not doing it. So what gives? And to be able to delve into that and to delve into the neshama of the person, of the soul of the person, like why really don't you do what you really want to do? What blocks you? Or what do you want more? Which gets you to do what you actually are doing. And to unearth that, to get to the point where you know what you want and it's clear how you're going to do it. So this is me doing right now. More involved in bigger companies, larger organizations, to the hands-on fine-tune the people so they should be able to do what they want to do. And automatically, business takes care of itself.
Got it. So there's a lot to unpack and a lot of questions to ask, but let me start with a fundamental question. I know there is a lot of confusion out there, the difference between a coach and a consultant. How do you define the difference between a coach and a consultant?
A consultant knows a topic. Let's say they know how phone systems works. The PBX boxes and channels and lines and parking, whatever these words are going to mean. They know exactly a certain thing. You come to a company, they assess the situation, and then they give an exact recommendation on how to fix that problem, because I know how this works. I'm consulting you on something. Even if it's business, they know how business should work. They know the exact rules of business. They come in, they assess the situation, and then they tell you, you need to have more people, you need to do more marketing, you need to have better training. They will give you a recipe of what to do and how to do it. That's a consultant. They know the act, they know the outcome, they know what needs to happen, and they tell you this is what needs to happen. If you don't know that, you should get a consultant to tell you how to look at financials, how to understand financials. What's a business? How do you get to know your unique selling proposition? Like the basic rules of business. A consultant is going to be very able to get you to know what you need to know. And then you go out and you actually execute. The coach is, well, sometimes I will know the answers to that. I will also know how business works. But the coach starts when the consultant ends. And the coach says, well, you know everything. Lamasa, in actuality, you're not doing it. So let's talk about that. And sometimes people, to that same question, there's a different question. So how are you different than a therapist? And the shortest answer to that is, when you're coming to a therapist, the main focus is that your knee hurts, let's say. So the therapist's job is to make sure that the pain goes away. So when you started out, you couldn't walk, and definitely you couldn't run. Now you could walk and you could run. Where you're going to walk, where you're going to run to, that's not the therapist's question. They don't care. They made sure that you could walk. When a coach comes in, the reason why and how, that's a subsequent question. The first question is, where do you want to go? Where do you want to get to? Now let's run. We start running and they say, oh, my foot hurts, my knee hurts, I can't run. Then I'll address that knee. Until and as long as you now could run to get where you want to go. Sometimes I would say, hey, the knee is too hurt. You got to go to a therapist to make sure that that blockage is not going to block you to get to where you want to go. Because the main focus is, where do you want to go? And verify if knowledge is missing. We could go to a professional, a consultant, to give you more information about that topic, or a therapist to make sure that you're healthy enough to be able to get there. But the main focus is, where do you want to go? And how would you actually get there?
I think this is so valuable, and I think our listeners should pay attention to what we just said, because there's a lot of confusion out there, and I think the way you have actually explained it puts things in context. So those different positions work hand in hand when needed, but they serve different functions. And I think you explained it very well. Hey listeners, are you struggling to create beautiful looking proposals? Is it a hassle every time you need to prepare a quote or proposal for your clients? Is collecting signatures still a manual process? Well, it's time to upgrade to PandaDoc. At PTEX, we use PandaDoc for all our proposals, employee documentation, and so much more. It saves us time, keeps everything organized, and our documents look incredibly professional. With customizable templates, real-time collaboration, and e-signatures, PandaDoc turns creating documents into quick and easy steps. Plus, it integrates with so many other tools, streamlining your workflow and boosting productivity. Try PandaDoc today by visiting ptex.co/PandaDoc and start your free trial. Trust me, it's going to be a game changer for your business. That's ptex.co/PANDADOC. Let's dive into some leadership. You mentioned before about bottleneck. You mentioned a little bit about your past history. We all know that most people are very hardworking. They want to be successful. They're also willing to put in the effort. And most people lack direction or clarity as far as what to do and how to do things. And that's where some people bring in good people in their organization, while others will also, include a consultant, a coach, in order to guide them, because if they feel that's what's needed. In terms of leadership in general, the end of the day, in order to run an organization effectively, you need proper leaders in a company. A lot of companies don't start with a strong leader. Starts with a young entrepreneur, saw a need, saw opportunity, started a company, and slowly but surely it took off. And then 2 years in, 3 years in, or whatever number of years in, and things are all over the place. But that person never changed their mindset from doing it, or being this solo entrepreneur working on their own, now being the same solo entrepreneur but working with a bunch of people. What is it in your case when you come into companies that you figure out about changing the mindset of somebody running the show to becoming a real leader?
It's one of the hardest things to do. And before we understand it, it's one of the hardest things to understand. Once you understand it, then the action, it's easier said than done. Sometimes it's said in a minute, 60 seconds, and the done takes 18 months. But let's try to do the 60 seconds said. Most of the time when people start out a business, they start out from where they were until then, which is yeshiva, kollel, school, college, doesn't matter. But the notion is, the better you are, the more successful you are. You need to be okay. You need to know the tests, the content. You need to excel as a person on your own in order to be able to be seen as good, as successful, as righteous, as smart. It's all you, which makes you a craftsman. When you start a business, most of the time, the person who runs that business gets to be a craftsman. They put the whole soul of their craft into something that they produce. The shift needs to happen that you stop being a craftsman. You lose the title of successful, of smart, of capable, of being the power to get people and to get away that torch and to transform into somebody who's not going to do things and not going to be able to show how good you are, but to get people and to be the teacher, to show them. A teacher doesn't do the tests. They teach on how the students are going to be smart. They are the ones giving out the accolades and the certifications. When you get to be a leader, you need to forego and let go of the need to show anybody that you're successful, that you're smart, that you're okay. And it's really hard. Number one, I don't trust people to be able to do what I'm doing. And even if I'm going to say I trust people, there's a hidden need to actually prove to myself that I am worth the money I'm getting. And until now, if I work really hard, there's a justification of making money. If I stop working hard, I just have others working for me. They should get paid, but why should I? I'm not doing anything. I'm not worth it in a certain sense. And I need to prove myself that I am worth it. And but there's also an additional really hardship in changing, because in reality, in physical reality and in social reality, we have to change and grow out of our old way of being and our success to start again. We get to be a child, and then we get to the 9th grade, like, get the tests, and we get to be like, we know how to be a child. We sit in the back of the bus and we can throw out all the younger kids. We are like, we have the power to be a child. And then my father comes and smashes on a small hat and say, okay, you start again. Now you get to be a bocher. And I don't know how to be a bocher. And then a few years go by and I know now exactly how to, I have a rubber in my beard if necessary. I know how to be a bocher. I have keys. I'm set. And then my father comes again, smashes on a strammel on my head, and I have to start again. I don't know how to do that. And then a few years go by, and I know how to be a father. And then I start marrying off my kids, and I start having grandchildren, and the cycle goes again. It's it's actually forced upon us to start again, to be a novice when we were a professional yesterday. When I start a new aspect of my life and I start to being a leader, I don't know what to do and how to do it. I don't know leadership. And I'm afraid. Yesterday, I was a professional. I knew exactly what to do and how to do it. And now I get professionals in, and in front of them, I start getting lost. They start to know what they need to do, and I'm lost. So it's an extreme pickle to say. It's really hard to go into the unknown and to start again while my company needs to flourish. I need to grow, not to grow backwards. So that once we understand that, and we know that this is the progression of life, you're going to have that fear again when you have one level of workers, and then you grow again. If you grow to a big organization, you're going to have another layer and another layer, another of management, and you're going to always stay on top, and you're going to have to retrain yourself how to do that and how to do that. This is the progression of life. Once we understand that the fear, it's still there, but we still at least have courage to know this is going to come. I'm going to get to be a novice. I'm going to get the training, and I'm going to be able to pull through.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me, like a couple of years ago, I had, we just about finished a project in PTEX, a large project, and there was a booklet that came out for that project. In the back, it was a bunch of credits. And the team was working the credits, the graphic designer, the writer, the strategist, the photographer, all the different credits that belong along, people that worked on the project. And then they came asking me that, where should we put your name? Like, to what type of credit? I wasn't involved in the project. I said, the nicest credit I could get is that my name is not part of that credits.
Right.
Because that means that I've assembled a team, people have their responsibilities, and they deliver to those responsibilities. That's the nicest achievement that I could have, that I don't have to touch it, that I don't have to touch everything.
The actual credit is that people hold that booklet in their hands. It's actually there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's such an important piece because if you're a great leader, it's not about you taking the credit. It should be obvious that you're leading the organization, but you should allow those people to shine and to grow into their roles and ultimately achieve what they need to achieve with their roles.
One additional point, nowadays, it's even much more, in a certain sense, easier and more necessary. Because back in the day, people knew certain things that gave them the opportunity to make business. I knew a guy in China. Nobody even heard of China, but you know a guy in China. You have a business now. And that's company secrets. The reason why I'm a boss is because I know stuff and I know people. Nowadays, the employees, most of the time, know much more than the boss. They do it every single day. And if you don't know, you can go to AI and ask. So the reason why an owner is an owner is because he, as an owner, has the ability to lead these people, to take the risk, and to set up this concoction of people to make sure that you could put out to the market the value that you want to. So it's much more important to grow into that aspect of being a leader.
So obviously, the people that listen regularly to the show know that we try to focus very much on practical advice for people listening to this, leaders and people within leadership teams, to understand how they could become better. I want to dive into some very practical places where people could find the bottlenecks, or they could become better. When you come into a company, let's say there's chaos, or there's a bottleneck of growth, whatever the reason why you would be called in. Where are the 2, 3, 4 places where you immediately dig in to see if those are the places that are holding the company from growth?
The first thing I would say, and I'm doing that. I'm getting into the office of my client, and we sit there for 3 hours, 4 hours, and we see what burns. If you're not around, what can't get done if you're not around? So if you're not, my client, get lost for the day. Just get off the phone and be in a place where you don't have a connection, and then come back after 5 hours and see what burns. That's going to give you a real view of where you are too much involved. And number 2, if you don't want to do that, or you did that and Baruch Hashem, everything is okay, write down just 1 week, record what you do. And what you're going to find automatically is that almost 75 to 80% of what you do is what you were able to do well. Because at the time you had to do it, you're still doing it. 25%, I think it's in one of the books of Benjamin Hardy. He talks about that. 80% of what you do is what you could already delegate to somebody else. The 20% is what you have to do that nobody else could do. If you focus on the 20% that only you could do, automatically you're going to start growing. If you want to know how well you're positioning your company, check on what you do. And, well, we're going to do the same idea, but we're going to use it a little bit differently. In the 80% of what you do, who else is doing that? And if you have too many people doing what you do together with you, you're not their leader. You're automatically a colleague. Get out of that. Get delegated better and start doing what nobody else could do. Then you see how much you are a leader versus a craftsman. And in addition to that, there's sometimes people say, you got to know who you are, and then focus on who you are, and then get to do what you need to do. Find yourself. And it's common. Sometimes it's common to a point of cliche. But to sit down and actually ask, and my clients ask me, okay, so where am I looking? I want to find myself. How do I go about it? Like, how am I able to actually find myself? And most of the time people do what they're habitually doing. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what everybody expects of me. I need to always be like the guy who brings the news to the group, or whatever, in a group session, or in the office. I need to always bring in the laughter in the group, or I need to be the stick and everybody gets tight when I come in. Whatever it is, how much of that is actually me, and how much of that just got to be me because there was nobody else to do that? So the question is always, how do I find myself out of who I am? It's not that I start right now and I have a new reset. I am a grown-up man or woman. It depends on the situation. But I'm a grown-up human being. I am already in the flow of doing things. Where do I start? So in practicality, it's a practice. It's going to take time. But in practicality, understand that before we find ourselves based on who we are for ourselves, we can't break out of comparing ourselves to the people around us, because up until a certain time, we didn't have a self. As a child, we actually do not have a self. The way we grow is we mimic and we compare ourselves to the social status around us, and we then try and mimic and come to a point where we stand out a little bit and we get our uniqueness. So before we go to ourselves for ourselves, we need to have a backdrop of others compared to who we are. But one shift, instead of asking myself, who am I based on who my father thinks I am, which is the regular way of looking at ourselves. We don't look at ourselves from our own eyes. We use the eyes of the father, the partner, the client, and they see us as who we are. And this is what we try to portray, because this is what we think we are. So the first question is, who am I based on my friend, based on my partner, based on my client, but what do I think I am? Based on what could I do that these people can't do? How am I special? But I'm still using other people as a barometer, but I'm using it for myself, to myself. And then I have 5 or 6 uniques that give me who I am based on the people around me. It doesn't make me really special. Let's not get haughty. And it's not GABA. You need to understand your specialties. And my analogy is, if you find yourself in a place where everybody has asthma and you don't, you can breathe, automatically you're going to be the one hauling boxes and doing any physical extraneous work, because you're the only one who doesn't have the problem everybody has. You're not special. You're just chosen for certain tasks because you have something that not everybody has. When you check yourself and you have certain specialties, you could sing, you could draw, you could, whatever it is, you could code. It's not that you're that special. You're just in a situation where everybody around you can't. You can, and you should use these special uniquenesses in order to excel yourself, to make sure that you provide value. You need to know these 6 things. When you know it to a point where you don't have to think about it already, then after a year, most probably, then you could start finding yourself as if you don't have anybody to compare yourself to. Based on who I am, based on who I know who I am, and I don't need anybody to confirm or recognize me and give me validation, because I got that validation from myself the past year. Then I'm healthy enough to check myself to myself. Am I really that good writer? Do I want to do that? Do I get highest in life whenever I do that? And then you check a week, 2 weeks, and you reflect every night. You did life, whatever you do. Check at night, what did I do that after I did that, I got so pumped up that I wanted to take the world on? That is who you really are. So it's a journey.
Yeah, so I always say that this line, which is "be yourself, everybody else is taken."
Yes.
People are so confused finding themselves and being who they are and what they really love, and pleasing other people around them, or trying to be somebody else, versus they have so much talent in themselves that they could just accelerate that.
Mm-hmm, but nobody told them.
Exactly. So let's go back, because one of the first things you mentioned about leadership in places where a leader could really take themselves out of the bottleneck, you mentioned about being away for a day and see what is burning, which is obviously the power of delegation, properly delegation. Why do you think so many leaders have this hard of a time to delegate stuff that they know they're not the best at, they know there are other people that could be better at?
I had the opportunity to join. There's a guy called Meny Hoffman. I don't know if you know him well, but he did a leadership circle. And at that point, I joined one of these circles. And
yeah, it's been a while.
And I heard from Michael Hyatt, the 5 levels of delegation. And I added the 6th one, when you forget about everything and you don't know what you're talking about. And that's when you really know that you've delegated. But given the levels of delegation, it's a process. It's always a process. It doesn't happen and half stands. Whoops, you're delegated. It's the reason, in my words, the reason why somebody is not delegating is because I'm afraid that the outcome that happens is not going to happen the way I want it. So, or you're not high enough that you forget about the outcome. You can't worry about the outcome. It's too minuscule of an outcome that you should be able to worry about. Or you don't trust the person that they will be. You don't have the guts to let them once drop the ball. And therefore, the delegation process, the third level of delegation, to let somebody do something and bring me the feedback on how you did it and do it again and do it again until you get better and better and better. That is where people are afraid to let go. It's just a fear. And it's also a fear of unknown. And again, sometimes, in my experience, people are afraid that they are not going to matter. I had once a guy, one of my clients, who kept telling me, I'm mamish torn apart. Everybody calls me every single day, shimmin this, shimmin that, shimmin. I just can't breathe. And I asked him, are you ready to actually delegate everything and be the boss that you want to be? He said, well, duh, this is what I'm paying you for. Okay, let's do this. So the next step is for you to do that. And anybody calls you in, tell them, I'm so sorry, I'm out of the office. I have no clue about your particular situation. Call into the office, call Yankee, he's going to know. And he did it for 10 days. Everybody called in any situation. He gave a name to call to the office. That name is going to help you. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it was quiet in his office. And he told me, Shulem, what am I doing with my life? Nobody wants me. So sometimes the reason why you don't want to delegate is because you want to be important. Coming back to leadership. When you go into leadership, you should know that you need to want much more to where you go to where you want to leave. You got to go towards where you want to go and not away. So this is another point. Well, we know that there's two ways of drivers, the hava and the yeta, the negative and the positive. Most of the time, most people get to where they want to go, not because they really want to get there, but the place where they are right now is so difficult, they need out. They want to, if you go away and the only push is the away, the second you're away of that situation and it's not as bad, you stop going because it's not as bad. I'm already away. But if you go towards something, and until you're not towards to your goal, you're going to keep going. Sometimes, a lot of times, people go to leadership not because they want to be a leader, but because the place where they are right now is so frustrating, they have to leave. So they start getting better. But they didn't envision the full image of what a real leader is going to look like. What are you going to actually do? You're going to manage people. You're going to actually own your company and with an adult, mature view on lead people. When we don't have that, then they will always fall back and find certain important things. They will say, well, this is important enough. I'm going to do that. Because they still want to hold on to certain levels of craftsmanship.
I want to touch another topic, which is company culture. Obviously, the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, we've seen a tremendous improvement, companies focusing on company culture. How important is company culture for a vibrant, growing environment?
The short answer is, if you have company culture, you have a company. If you don't, you don't. It's that simple. But let me explain it a little bit better, what company culture means, because it's not something that I use in my house on a regular basis, the word culture. And well, the only familiarity I had with the word culture was when the doctor gave me a throat culture. So, which is also not used nowadays, I think. So, I'm going to give you an example. In my earlier days, I had an idea that the reason why people will not do what you want them to do is because they don't understand you, which is still it's true most of the time. A leader wants something, they failed to articulate enough what they really want, the outcomes. They focused on tasks, do this, do that, but they didn't explain why the paint me done. Like, why do you want this? What's the outcome of that? And there's a miscommunication. So I focused extremely a lot with my clients to make sure that they communicate really well what they want. In certain cases, the communication was profound, but a guy, the owner tells his his top guy. And because there's a vulnerability to the client, we need to make sure that the client is aware of that and to mitigate that vulnerability. And the guy answers, who? He's vulnerable? Okay, so let's raise the price and let's make a real killing out of this deal. That is the difference of company culture. When you have a person who matches your values and understands where you want to go, how you want to do business, and when a problem presents itself, they come up with, when they do understand the real issue, they come up with the same concepts and the same ideas on how you would handle these situations. If you don't have a real understanding of what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, and the culture in the hearts of people is different, the reason why we do business, how we do it, then you don't have a company. You have a lot of people working. But it could not happen to come to a place where there's real cohesion. And in our analogy, when you are your own person, your head is always in full sync with your hands. Always. When you have a company, you need to be able to have that level of sync with the people, because one person is the hand, one person is the foot, one person is the ear, and one person is the eye. So if you don't have 100% full and easy communication and sync with all the aspects of the company, then the body of the company cannot work.
A lot of people that approach you to come into the company is usually they have a successful company, or they have a company that has a lot of issues, and they bring you in. A lot of times when you come in, there's some sort of culture. Like people say, I don't have a culture. So there's also this thing like a company not having a culture. You might have a bad culture. You might have a culture of negativity or whatever it is, but you do have something. You know, it's a factual piece. Question is, what are some steps leaders could do in order to turn around a culture? Like when you come into a company and coaching the leader to start making changes, what are some practical pieces on that front?
Step one, as you just said, there's no void in culture. Let's identify the culture. And as an example, it took a while to get to understand it really, but once I got it, I realized that I need to look for it. And there's sometimes a culture in companies that the whole company is working to satisfy the owner. If he's happy, everybody's happy. If he's not happy, so everybody always works in order to make sure that the owners or the managers above are always happy. That's a company culture. And it's sometimes hidden. When you find that and you realize that everybody's working only to make somebody happy and your company could go under, but everybody's really happy, it's like singing on the Titanic. Everybody's really happy, but you're sinking. When we can identify the company culture, you ask a few people, or you have a friend ask a few people, how happy are you in this company? What are you doing all day? Why are you doing it? You ask a few people in the company, you get a vibe. The common denominator, what people answer to the same question, is going to give you the company culture. So sometimes people would say, I need to show everybody that I'm the best. And if somebody else is going to show that, I'm going to be up all night to show that I'm the best. Then you see a certain backstabbing company culture because everybody wants to trample over the other one to be able to show how good they are. That's company culture. So even if you didn't instill that, it's the company culture. So step one, identify the culture. Step two, decide what you really want. Go proactively deciding this is what I want. A culture of accountability, a culture of pride, whatever the culture is you want, and it's dear and near to your heart. The Pusik says the heart of the nation is the king. And in real microcosm, the heart of a company is the owner. And the owner is always who he is, gets to be the company. You can't fake it. So you need to work on yourself.
So I wanna, we could go on for a very long time, and we're touching a lot of very important topics. I want to speak to you about, obviously, a coach obviously is very close to the person and the leader, and ultimately shadows the leader and is there to support and hold the leader accountable. Obviously, to every business leader, they're running the business, so they have a role in the business, but ultimately there's a whole side to a person, which is the personal development, personal growth. There's a saying out there I think it's from Dave Ramsey, a organization will never outgrow its leader. which means is that you could have a coach, you could have consultants, you could have a thriving business. But if you, as a person, are not in the growth mindset, at one point you're gonna hold the company a bottleneck, even if you're gonna learn a lot of the stuff we discussed today, because you just don't have that mindset of growth. The people that you work with, how much do you see they're working side by side on the growth of the company and at the same time on their personal development?
People I'm working with, we focus on that as much as the company, and sometimes it's 80% personal development and 20% company, because the idea, the saying, it's just business, it's nothing personal, is a joke. There's no such thing as just business. You are a person, a business are people. A business is a group of people doing stuff. So it's always human. And you are who you are. In my understanding, we are a physical body, an emotional body, and a mind body. And if you want to know who you are, the Gemara says, Udam Nikker. You want to know yourself? Check Bekoisa Bekisa Bekasoi. Because Bekiso is the material self. Bekoisa is when your head goes haywire. And Bekasa is when your emotions go astray. You want to really know who you are. Check yourself on who you are. You can't hide that. You can't mimic that. You are who you are. And the way you respond to your partner is the way you respond to your wife. And the way you respond to your employees is the way you respond to your kids. And the way you respond to your lawyer or to the higher ups is the way you respond to your father and to the Rov and Besmedrish. It's the same life. Your life in Besmedrish, your life in the business, and your life on the street, and your life at home is exactly the same. If you don't work on yourself, you will never be able to be successful, because a business, like a human, because it's based on human, a human is a hoilach. There's no omit. So you're not staying at one level. Automatically, a business cannot stay in one level. It always goes up or down. And if you can't go up, the business can't grow. You always need to expand. So you need to work at least in the beginning. Sometimes people never looked at themselves. It sometimes takes a few months to focus only on personal growth, to change that mind shift, to understand that you're not the smartest in the room. And if you are, change the room, as they say. You've got to always have somebody smarter than you to understand you can always grow. And then when that is a routine in the person's life, the questions are always, yesterday a client asked me, I got nuanced by one of my top guys doing something. Is that because I'm territorial or because I really, really want to fix my company? And I answered that I once took a test if I'm a narcissist. And the answer came, you're not a narcissist. Now take the test. I took the test and the answer came back, we told you you're not a narcissist because a narcissist never takes the test. So when you ask me, if I come in and you ask me, am I territorial or not, then you're good. If you see a problem, fix the problem. Don't go into that dakisdige detail, to check if you're maybe with the awareness that you are afraid that maybe the reason why you want to say something is because you don't want to overpower somebody. That enough shows you how you weigh every move that you do. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I want to close and ask you a question, something that's actually very dear to my heart, and I see this every single day. I meet with people on a daily basis. People on the show know while I meet with people in business, I also meet a lot with people on the personal side, and I actually have voluntary slots where I meet with people free of charge, a couple of slots a week. What I find out sometimes when I meet with people is obviously people are in pain, people have challenges, people have issues, and they don't have where to turn to. And my question always to those people is like, why did you wait so long? Why didn't you seek out help? Why didn't you reach out to people around you for help? And a lot of times, if that would happen way earlier, so many more people would be able to be helped, or at least not be so much in pain, knowing that other people care about them. The same is with the coaches, consultants, where go into companies. Sometimes you could see such a 360 change in the atmosphere, in the leaders' personal life based on changes. Why do you feel people are so hesitant reaching out, and what can you share with our audience if they are in that category that they should take the approach and initiative to reach out?
I have one or two groups on WhatsApp. I'm too busy. in a professional group, and I got a message a few weeks back, like 2 weeks ago. The three things people have a really hard time saying: I made a mistake, I need help, and the state of Massachusetts. And then I asked back the group, how many of you tried only the third one? Because the first two were too hard. People think that if I need help, I'm a nebuch. I'm a beggar. I need help. The losers need help. A successful person doesn't need help. The more successful you get, the less help you would need. This is what people who didn't ask for help or are not yet successful think. In reality, the more successful you get, the more help you're going to need. And I realize that Shashuna and now I have another child married. Now I need even more, because I need more grandchildren. And next year, I'm going to ask you for more, because I'm going to have another child to do a shidduch, and another child who's going to need to have children. The needs are always going to grow. And I'm going to just expand my requests to you. I'm asking you, and I'm telling them to say thank you, but I'm going to only, after you give me what I'm asking right now,
need more.
I'm always going to need more. I'm going to ask for more. The more successful you get in business, the more help you're going to need. When you understand that asking for help is the first step in success. We all want the success. We don't want to be seen as non-successful. Understand when you say, I'm okay, it means that you need a lot of help. When you start saying, I don't know, and then, okay, now you're getting somewhere. You have a certain business, you realize you can't do it on your own. So the message is, it not only shouldn't it be hard, understand that when you do start asking for help, you actually start to be seen by the successful people as successful. People who don't want to be successful or are not successful, they think that when you ask for help, you're a loser. Get out of these people. Go away from these people. You're not a loser. Ask for help. And you're going to realize that the higher you go, the more people ask for help.
Beautiful. Where could people find out more about you if they want to contact you or they want to hear more about your services?
For now, it's my cell phone. You can go into or online, reactively.com. There's a main line, an email, but directly to me, it's my cell phone, 845-659-6166. I am mostly in session, but if you leave a message, I'll get back to you.
Beautiful. For the links, resources mentioned in this episode, check out the show notes at www.ptechgroup.com/podcast, where we'll link to the Rock Leadership's website so you can learn more about all the different programs that they offer and ultimately reach out to Shulem. Let's close with the 4 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay. I didn't know it's going to come.
Number 1, a book that changed your life.
Energy Leadership by Bruce Schneider.
Yes, a good book. Number 2, a piece of advice you got that you'll never forget.
The more humble you get, the more successful you're going to be. Get humble. Humility is the key.
Number 3, anything you wish you could go back and do differently.
Understand the second thing. I was too proud and too full of myself to allow myself to grow.
Beautiful. And last and final question, what's still on your bucket list to achieve?
I started a book. I want to be an author.
Cool. So you're going to come back. We'll premiere the book over here on the show. Shulem, thank you so much for joining us. I know your time is valuable. That is why, in the name of our listeners, we'll forever be grateful for sharing some of your time with us today. It's been a blast.
Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. That's my conversation with Shulem Berkowitz. My takeaway from this one, number 1, Shulem's journey illustrates the importance of transitioning from a hands-on entrepreneur to an empowering leader. By focusing on enabling team members and embracing leadership roles, individuals can foster business growth and personal development. Number 2, recognizing the unique contributions of consultants, coaches, and therapists can help individuals and organizations leverage the right expertise at the right time. This understanding is critical for overcoming obstacles and achieving organizational goals. Number 3, leadership effectiveness is closely tied to self-awareness and continuous personal development. Shulem emphasizes the significance of understanding one's strengths and delegating tasks to create space for strategic leadership. Number 4, Shulem highlights the necessity of aligning company culture with shared values and clear communication. Leaders should articulate their goals and foster a supportive culture to ensure that team members act in ways that reflect the company's ethos. And number 5, Shulem's experience underscores the importance of seeking external support and being open to help. Understanding that asking for assistance is a strength rather than a weakness can lead to greater success and continuous growth, both personally and professionally. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Let's Look Business podcast. I hope you enjoyed the practical, no-nonsense advice that our guests shared. If you found value in listening, I would be so grateful if you could share the episode with your friends, and if you could give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever platform you listen. Subscribe to the show and get notified every time we publish a new episode. The Let's Look Business podcast is a PTEX Group original production. Until next time, make it a great day.